5 most toxic kinds of people. All right. So, number one, the complainer. This is the person that is just going to drag you down. They just never are happy. Have you noticed that this person goes from relationship to relationship and they always seem to have the same kinds of complaints about whoever it is that they're with? I mean, the same boyfriend, the same job, the same whatever. They're constantly complaining. They're always a victim, never can get anything right. And by the way, these complainers are usually covert narcissists and they're usually passive aggressive. If you want to know more about a covert passive aggressive narcissist, I have a whole video on that. You can definitely check it out. I even have a whole video on covert narcissism in relationships. We can definitely check out because I actually had a whole situation on that myself. I actually think that covert narcissists are the worst ones because they're like the stealthiest ones. But these are the complainers and these are people that are so toxic because they're constantly unhappy. Like nothing anyone ever does is good enough. I mean, you go out to a restaurant with them, they're unhappy. I've been there. Like, I've had people like this in my family where everybody in the whole table, the whole party, ends up having to get up and leave because they weren't happy with something that happened. This is not a good thing. You leave this person after being with them for a couple of hours and you just don't even feel good. You've been with these people before, right? You want to actually get up from being with people after a few hours and feel good. You want to feel lighter. You want to feel happy. That's what you want to think. That's what you want to feel. I remember somebody was talking about somebody and they were like, oh, when he walked into the room, you felt happier. And when he left the room, you felt sad. Like that's what you want to feel. That is not a person that when they came into the room, they were like bitching and moaning the whole time. No. So the complainer, you don't need that person in your life. That's a toxic person. The next type of a toxic person that you don't need in your life, number two, the competitor. You know this person. Like, no matter what you say, they got it either better than you or worse than you. You've been around this person, like, you got a cold. Oh, I got a cold. And it is like, I got a sore throat and I got a fever. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just said I had a cold. They got to be sicker than you. They got to be worse, way sicker than you. And you're just like, oh, I just said I had a cold. Never mind. Or you got to say, I'm like, excited about this opportunity that I have or something. They're excited about their opportunity and, whatever. And it's like, okay, great. I mean, recently I was telling somebody that I hadn't seen in a few years. They asked me what I was up to, and I was telling them, that I was doing this stuff on YouTube now or whatever, because they were just asking me what I was up to. And they had to go and tell me that they knew somebody else that was also on YouTube and had like way more subscribers and I was like, "Oh, that's great." There's just these people that always have to be competitive no matter what, even if it's the smallest thing. You can't have a normal relationship with somebody like that because you constantly feel that whatever it is that you're going to say is going to be either one up. It's not even just from themselves, it's somebody that they know or something else. It's just not comfortable. You just can't even have a comfortable conversation because they think that you're competing with them, even if you're not. And then that's uncomfortable because they're having this competition. And I mean, I know for myself, I'm thinking to myself, who's competing? I'm not, but they think that you are. It's not fun. It's toxic. And it just makes it, again, you want to be where you've left that person, you spent your time, which is precious, life is short, and you feel better. So that's number two. The third type of toxic person that you don't need in your life, the judger. This is a person who's constantly judging everything that you're doing, not only that you're doing, but that everybody else is doing too. This person's not good enough, or that person's doing this, or, you know, everything is being judged all the time. I mean, even if they're judging something that's going on the news or on television, or, they're kind of constantly always, it's almost like they're looking down their spectacles or down their glasses. What's going on? Right? This is a person who's definitely very insecure in themselves. So they want to prop themselves up. Again, very narcissistic thing to do, probably a very covert narcissistic thing to do. Oftentimes, it's a passive aggressive type of move. Oh, you've lost weight. You've got a ways to go. But, you look better than you did. That kind of thing. Who needs that? So that's number three. Number four. Number four is even worse than the judger. Number four is the backstabber. If somebody is constantly backstabbing people, especially people that that other person thinks that person is their friend, that person is 100% backstabbing you. Because if you think that they're your friend, and then they're backstabbing, somebody else that they think is your friend to you, that's not good. You don't want to do that. And that's really what that is flying monkey situation. That's smear campaign situation. That's a very, very narcissistic thing to do. Narcissists like to divide people. They like to make people be pitted against each other, because that's how they make sure that people aren't aligned. They want to make sure that people aren't ganging up on them. So they divide people. And I do have a whole video, by the way, on how to shut down a narcissist smear campaign, something that you might want to check out if you are a victim of a narcissist smear campaign. If you do have that situation and you want to shut them down, you should definitely put that in the comments right now. Shut them down. Shut down toxic people. It's time to shut them down. And we come to the most toxic type of person. I saved the best for last, of course. The most toxic type of person, the one that we definitely nobody needs, because this is the one who's out of integrity, and without integrity, nothing works. So this is the one that no one needs. And so if you see this is massive red flag. This is the flag that you see and you just run away. This is the one where you go, no, no, thank you. I'll keep to myself. Thank you very much. The liar. The liar. Big narcissist move. Big toxic move. You don't need liars in your life. Remember how Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. If somebody's a liar, they're a liar. And you can't go, well, they were having a hard time. They didn't mean it. Especially if it's a major lie. I mean, you really can't explain those kinds of things away. Don't allow liars in your life. Don't allow people in your life who are going to not have integrity, who don't have enough respect for you as a human being to tell you the truth, who don't have enough respect for your time to tell you the truth because that wastes your time, your energy. No, liars are the worst, the most toxic. Those are the most toxic types of people. You don't need these people in your life. You need to shut them down, cut them out, go, goodbye. And there's enough good people in the world, people who are compassionate, have empathy, have integrity. When you raise your standards, you don't get your goals, you get your standards. And when you raise your standards, then you get good people in your life. Okay, so 5 traits of extremely toxic people. I've seen them myself. I've seen them punch walls. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy things, and I can spot them a mile away. And I want you to be able to spot them a mile away. So make sure you watch all the way till the end, because I'm going to be giving you each one of them, and I'm going to save the best one till the end. All right. So, number 5 trait of extremely toxic people is they never take responsibility for their actions. It's always project and deflect. Project and deflect. It's always someone else's fault, right? It's always someone else. It's never their fault. And boy, have I seen this. They're so good at making it someone else's fault, making sure that someone else gets to take the blame. And, this is something you definitely see a lot with narcissists, especially when they get caught in lies. And I definitely have a video on that. What happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie? They project and deflect. It's someone else's fault, and they never take responsibility for their actions. And part of the reason why you see narcissists never take responsibility for their actions is because they have that fragile inner sense of self, that fragile sense of inner child, inner self, which is like, if they take responsibility somehow for themselves, then it takes away from who they are. Then it takes away from, somehow they fall apart. Somehow they don't survive. Somehow there's like that hollow inner self, and they literally become unglued. They literally become triggered. That inner sense of self is so fragile that they have to push it off on other people. They don't feel whole, they don't feel complete. And so that's why they never take responsibility for their actions. That's the first trait of extremely toxic people. So if you have one of those people around you that just never takes responsibility, then run for the hills. Number 4 is people who are very critical, always making you wrong, always making you feel like you're small, always making you feel like you are to blame for their problems. It's always you. You are the problem. You're the one. It's never their fault. It's never them. They don't have to ever take responsibility for anything that they do, and you're the one that triggers them. You're the one who has the problem. They're very critical, extremely judgmental of everything around them. They don't like anyone. If that's how they are, there's something very wrong. But they're always making you feel small, you feel bad. And if you're around them and you are constantly feeling small and bad, then you know that they're probably extremely toxic. You want to be around people that when you walk away from them, you feel lighter, you feel better. They're fanning your flames. You feel like, I just want to be around that person more because they make me feel really great every time I'm around them. All right. So that's number 4. Number 3 is a person who is always making themselves out to be a victim. That's the third type of person who's extremely toxic. Have you ever been around this type of a person? They're just constantly a victim. They're constantly Everything is woe is me. Everything is bad. No matter how much it seems like their life is great, they're just always a victim. Covert narcissists are really, really great at that. And if you want to know more about covert narcissists, I definitely have a video about covert narcissists, about especially covert narcissism in relationships, and you should definitely check that out. All right. So that's number three. And if you guys have seen this so far, give me a totally in the comments. So that's number three. Number two, this is where the person is just always talking bad about other people. This is that one who's just like constantly talking bad about other people behind their backs. And you just know they're definitely talking bad about you too. I mean, if they're talking bad about other people to you, you know they're talking bad about you when they're with other people too. I mean, that's just how people are. And so that's just a trait of an extremely toxic person. People who feel good about people don't do that. And I go back to the four agreements, which is never to take anything personally. This is a book which I highly recommend. It's one of my top reads. And it's four agreements that you make with yourself. One of the agreements is to never take anything personally because people treat other people the way they feel about themselves, good or bad. So if somebody treats other people badly, it's because they feel bad about themselves. Hurt people, right? So if somebody feels good about themselves, then they treat other people well. If somebody feels like crap about themselves, then they treat other people poorly. And so people who talk badly about other people, it's just somebody who just feels toxic inside. So they just are toxic person in general. And that's just not the type of person that you really want to spend your time with. There's an old saying that says, if you really want to know where you are in life, take a look around and see who the top five people are in your life. And that'll tell you where you are in life and what kinds of a quality of where you are in life. So you want to make sure that the top people in your life are super quality people. I always say defend your light with your life and make sure that the people who are closest to you are people who you really want to defend your spirit and defend your light. Right. So that's number two. And number one, the number one most toxic person in the world, people who lie, people who don't have integrity, right? Liars, liars, pants on fire. People who don't have integrity. Without integrity, nothing works. People who lie. And those narcissists, they are pathological liars. They lie about everything. They lie about things they don't even need to lie about, which is the crazy thing to me. And that's where you end up getting your leverage, by the way. That's where you end up being able to create your patterns, create your strategy, all that good stuff for your cases, for your negotiations.
Have you seen a lot of narcissists in dealing with your cases as a judge?
I did, and I used to call them. We didn't talk about narcissism back in the early '90s, which is when I became a judge in Cleveland Heights. I was a criminal judge. I used to call them people with persistent personalities because I ran into this certain segment of the population where their personality was so extraordinarily persistent that they had to win every argument, either it was a neighbor or a wife or something, every argument all the time. No, they were just. Their personality was so persistent. So that was my alliterative way of describing what now
PPP
I see
before
as a
PPP.
narcissist. Right, exactly.
So, do you think? I'm just thinking when you say people with persistent personalities, in a lot of ways, persistence actually helps people get somewhere, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I meant persistent personality, and it was a very defined phrase and term because persistence is how you get to where you and I are, which is doing things that we love.
well,
We
yeah, but there's a school of thought out there that narcissists actually are oftentimes very successful. And why is that? Probably because they're extremely persistent,
persistent,
right?
right, exactly, exactly. And everything that you have emotionally and mentally, it has a good side and a bad side. You know what I mean? It can allow you to do certain things. My father's bipolarity allowed him to, when he was manic, engage in some very uh, uh, positive things because he simply was unafraid when he was manic and he could do anything.
Interesting. Interesting.
Okay, so you know what? They do know what they're doing. You know that they know what they're doing. You know that they know what they're doing is wrong. And I'm going to prove it to you by the end of this video. So, first of all, how do they know what they're doing is wrong? You know that they know because how do they start off the relationship with you? They don't start off the relationship with you by treating you poorly, do they? No, they start off by the charm. Whether it's a business relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, it doesn't really matter. They turn it on, they lay it on thick. They've studied people, they know how to look like amazing. They lay it on and look, like they're absolutely perfect for you in absolutely every way. So they know how to look perfect and wonderful and charming. They start off by looking like that. They know that that's how they're supposed to be with people. And so here they come being wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They know that that's how they need to look in order to get you charmed, right? So that's what looking wonderful looks like. That's how they start off the relationship, looking wonderful. Let me get that for you. Let me help you. Let me be as wonderful as I can be. So that's proof number one. I know that in order to get you to think that I'm wonderful, I need to seem wonderful to you. So that's number one. And number two is if you catch them doing something that they're not supposed to do, what do? Lying and denying, right? I mean, if they didn't know it was wrong, why would they lie and deny it? Obviously, they would just say what they were doing, but they know that they have to lie and deny about it. That's again proof that they know their behavior is wrong, proof that they know it's unacceptable. Because if they didn't know what they were doing was unacceptable, they would just tell you, right? So there again, proof. And again, with the projection and deflection, same thing. You catch them in a lie or that you catch them doing something. They project and deflect, same thing. Same thing with their double lives. They all lead these double lives. They have this sort of face that they don't show people, and then they have this face that they show people. This mask that's like they want the world to see, and then they've got this other sort of very insecure side to them. There's a whole video that I have, by the way, on what happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie, which you can definitely check out if you'd like. And that's another whole story. Another thing is that they do know that they have to behave at times, and they behave when they have to. That's another form of proof that they do know that their behavior is wrong, that they do know when their behavior is unacceptable because they behave when they have to. And it's very, very manipulating. And gaslighting, by the way, is another form of proof that definitely shows that they know that their behavior is unacceptable and their behavior is wrong because they are using gaslighting as a form of manipulation, and they are very much deliberately using that as a form of trying to get somebody to believe that their reality is something different than what it actually is for their own benefit, so that they can have what they want, so that they can project and deflect away from whatever it is that they're doing, so that they can get away with things or whatever it is that they want to get away with, because they're manipulative. A lot of times, if they're smart enough, especially the covert ones, they can see and mirror what people are doing and behave in a way that they can see is supposed to be, oh, I'm supposed to act empathetic. I don't actually care what's happening in somebody's life, but I can pretend, and I can see that that's how empathetic people act. So I can mirror that and make it look like I actually care. And so that can become very, very dangerous too. But they know that that's like supposed to be how they act. But then when push comes to shove, you'll find out the real story, and you'll see, oh, like they didn't actually care. And then you'll see like that they knew that their behavior wasn't what it was supposed to be or whatever. And then again, you'll see that they're proof that they knew their behavior wasn't what it was supposed to be. And again, you'll see where they know that their behavior isn't what it's supposed to be, but they don't care a lot of the time. You will see a lot of times they do tell on themselves too, by the way that they speak, by the way that they act, by the way that they write their text messages, by the way they write their emails. They can't help but do that a lot of times. It's really interesting when I teach people how to put together their strategy and their leverage in the Slay program. I always tell people they are horrible and heinous to deal with, but they're actually very simple in the sense that their playbook is kind of the same. The patterns are very, very similar. They're not all that difficult to figure out once you have figured out that you are dealing with that personality type. They're actually pretty simple because they're all driven by one thing, and that is that narcissistic supply, because they do need that narcissistic supply. That is their food, it is their lifeblood, it is their oxygen. But there are many, many examples of how they do know that their behavior is wrong, because they can behave when they want to, because they do all the time, especially at the beginning of the relationship, how they got you in the first place. And, when you're dealing with them in court, you can see them behaving in front of the judge. You can see them behaving with lawyers. I mean, you see them behaving when they need to all the time. And that's your proof. So let's talk about that one thing that the narcissist never wants you to know. Okay. So think about it. They live their lives. Almost everything they do is a lie, right? I mean, they were born and they were fine. And from what I understand, it's definitely a nurture thing, not a nature. I mean, so, yes, not a nature thing, a nurture thing. And that means that something happened to them when they were children that caused them to be injured in some way, and they started to see the world as a very scary place, and their scarcity mentality to the absolute extreme. They feel like it's like dog eat dog, like I have to survive, and the only way I can survive is by lying and manipulating and getting things like, and that's why they end up lying about stuff that they don't even need to lie about, and manipulating things when they don't even need to be manipulating. But it's just because that's their way of being. That's how they were born. And so they were traumatized. They felt like they needed to survive. And so they have this like this little inner self that's super fragile, that has no sense of self worth. And they just layer on everything on the outside world to make you think, or make the whole world think, that they're this persona when they're actually this persona. And they're almost like two different versions of themselves. People who are fully self present, fully self aware, fully feeling whole and complete don't feel like they're different people when they are between, being at home, watching TV, having dinner with their family, or whatever it is that they're doing behind closed doors, versus the person that is shown to the world, that goes out, that works in the workplace, that talks to people. With narcissists, it's almost two different personas as to what they show. And even there's another even layer, even beyond what's at home, which is what they never want anyone to know, which is that deep thing that's going on inside of them. So I mean, there's a lot of secrets that they have, and there are a lot of things that they don't want you to know. I mean, what they want you to think is that they're better than everyone else, that they're smarter than everyone else, that they're a winner. And that's why they act the way they do. That's why they put people down all the time. That's why they're super jealous. They act very, very entitled. They use people. But all of that is because that's how they feel like they have to show up and be in the world. And so, to maintain the facade of that they're better than everyone else and smarter than everyone else and have more money or have a nicer house or whatever it is that they're trying to project out into the world, they'll do whatever they can to protect that. And especially things that, how they look in the world. And that's why when you're negotiating with them, you have to be very, very aware that this is what's happening with them, because they will protect that at any cost. At the very least, put people down and, engage in control tactics. And, they're jealous and they have no boundaries and all that. But, when it comes to negotiating, you're either for them or against them. And if you're going to be against them, then you're going to be public enemy number one. And they have to see things in black and white. That's what's going on during the negotiations. They're constantly trying to test people a lot of times too. And if you want to know more about that, you should definitely check out my video on how narcissists test victims. And if you have seen this and you know that I'm right so far, give me a for sure in the comments. All right, so you ready for the big, big secret, the one that they definitely do not want you to know? And that is that little self that they have, that little fragile thing that lives inside of them is extremely afraid. They are super fear based people, and they are afraid of everything. They're afraid of being exposed, number one, more than anything. They're afraid that you're going to leave them. That's also a paradox, because they treat you like terrible and then they don't want you to leave them. Or they're actually extremely codependent. One of their biggest fears one of their biggest fears is of abandonment, actually. And so the big, big secret is that they are actually more afraid of you than you are of them. They're super afraid of being exposed for the fraud that they are. And they'll go to any lengths to protect that. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, that's what you have to remember. You have to keep all of these things in mind, because you're going to have to kind of keep their ego in check to a certain extent, but then also make them feel like they are potentially going to be exposed, that something might be happening to them. And so when you're building your strategy and you're building your leverage, it's really important to understand and anticipate what it is that they're going to do, what's motivating them, how are they going to behave during the negotiations, because then you can build a strategy and leverage such that you'll be able to motivate them and incentivize them into wanting to have a conversation with you. Don't think that they're going to change. Don't think that you're going to be able to get them to see the error of their ways and, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I treated you or how this happened or whatever, because they're not going to do that. And the reason why they have a hard time apologizing, or they have a hard time admitting that they're wrong or that they're responsible or giving anybody credit for anything, is because they have such a fragile sense of self. It's almost like, if I do that, then I will crumble, then there won't be enough for me. They're almost like glass or something that's been very carefully, meticulously protected, and they don't want to be exposed. So that's really the biggest secret of all. And that is that you are actually the stronger one. They are way more afraid of you than you are of them. And there are a lot of ways that you can build a strategy and leverage around that, so that you can walk away with getting what you want and they also feel intact. More than anything, you need to feel valued, honored, and respected, and setting yourself up so that no one and nothing can ever infringe on that. Have you ever been ghosted or lied to, and you're just feeling so awful inside, and you're sitting there and you're feeling like so defeated, and you're wondering, should you try to go back to this person? Maybe you're wondering if the person is gone, or the person is still in your life and still just treating you really poorly. And you're wondering if you should just keep them in your life. They've betrayed you, they've treated you badly. Maybe they're sort of in and out of your life and they're not good for you. And you're wondering if what you should do about it. And or they're just gone, and you're wondering whatever happened to them. You're just feeling really, really crappy about it. And you're feeling like, what did you do? And maybe you're just feeling like you're a bad person. There's something wrong with you, and you just can't trust again. And there's all kinds of stuff that you're feeling, and you're wondering, how do you stop feeling defeated? How do you stop feeling like, it was you, or all these bad feelings are going through your head? And there's a couple of things I want you to know. First of all, I want you to think about the fact that it was not you. If you're dealing with a narcissist, if you're dealing with a bad person, consider the source. I mean, my dad used to say, consider the source all the time. One of my favorite books on the planet is The Four Agreements. And if you haven't read that book, you need to go get that book. It's a tiny little book. It's something you can read in an afternoon, a couple of hours. It's four agreements that you make with yourself. And one of the agreements is never take anything personally, because people treat other people is always a reflection of the way they feel about themselves, good or bad. I mean, if people treat other people well, it's because they feel good about themselves inside. So if they're acting out of love, then they won't have treated you poorly in the first place. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to be with you, then they'll just straight up tell you, I don't want to be with you, and here's why, and that sort of thing. If somebody has ghosted you, they've given you a gift, because they've told you what kind of person they are. They've given you a gift. Honestly, if they had stayed around in your life, they would have just been causing you more and more misery all the time. So they've truly given you a gift, because they've now left a space for somebody wonderful to be in your life. You don't need that type of person in your life. You want that space to be open for a good person to be in your life. You had it confirmed that that person is not a good person. And the thing that I've learned is that the closure that you're going to get is that you have to do your own closure. You have to learn how to do your own closure for yourself. I learned how to do that on my own after I dealt with a narcissist in my own life. And you can't sit there clinging on to a person who didn't want you. I mean, I used to say to people all the time, why do you want to be with a person who doesn't want to be with you? There's no power in that. There's certainly no power in wanting to be with a person who doesn't want to be with you. There's certain ways to get a narcissist to respect you, and that is definitely not one of them. By the way, I did a whole video on the only way to get a narcissist to respect you, and you can definitely check that out if you want to if you want to check that out, but that's definitely not the way to get a narcissist to respect you. You want to be in your own power, and one of the ways to do that is to be with a person who definitely wants to be with you, and you deserve that. Feel that you know that in your cells. And remember what Maya Angelou said when she said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. She was so right about that. People will show you who they are, and you set the bar for how people treat you. You show them. You don't get your goals, you get your standards. You condition people on how to treat you, and people will treat you accordingly. So when someone shows you how they treat you, their words don't matter, their actions matter. So, I mean, they can say all kinds of things, they love you or they don't, whatever, but it's their actions that actually matter. And they will demonstrate to you how it is that they actually are treating you. And you deserve so much more than that. So don't worry about closure. Don't try to get them to explain what they were doing, or don't you try to explain. Don't try to get them to acknowledge your actions. None of that. It's not going to happen. You're never going to get that kind of closure. Just move forward, find yourself, find your power in yourself. Just remember that if they've moved on, they gave you a gift. They gave you a gift of showing you who they actually are. Just say, I know my value. And I want you to write that in the comments below. I know my value. Just start feeling that power, and pay attention to your gut. I mean, if somebody is really there for you, you'll feel it. You'll know it. Your vibrational energy knows it. It knows it on a cellular level. And you will be able to tell if they are actually there for you. So if you've been ghosted or lied to, you will know. And don't allow it. Move forward. Find the quality person. I always say, defend your light with your life. Find the high vibrational energy people. Be with people who want to be with you. That makes the difference in your life. Even if it's, the 5 most quality people in the world, that will make a huge difference in the value of your life. Toxic people aren't going away anytime soon. When you can really become that most powerful version of yourself, it really doesn't matter when they're around. That's really when you become free. They're like a gnat flying around. That's when life becomes different for you. So, how do you handle toxic people? Well, number one, you have to create boundaries, right? Step one, don't run. Step one, don't run. But number one is create boundaries, create super strict boundaries, because they've been conditioning you from the beginning. So when they've been conditioning you from the beginning, you've got to start creating these super strict boundaries so that you can start to heal. Your brain is like foggy, and it's been turned into some kind of mush sometimes. And in order for you to start to heal, you've got to start creating boundaries that are really, really strict, because they're going to look for ways in. They're going to look for ways to have other avenues to get in. And so, I often say, have one form of communication, one form of input, and I always say, have it be a way that you can actually document a date and time stamp, a way that they can't manipulate. Text messages can be manipulated. Conversations that are, oral, like talking, they can't be documented. So email is a perfect way to be documented, because it really can't be manipulated. the same way that text messages can be manipulated. So, one way of handling a toxic person is to create boundaries, create super strict boundaries. All right. So, that's number one. Number two is to pick your battles. They give you all kinds of battles, all kinds of battles. And you want to engage in every single one of those battles. Don't get involved in every single one. You want to end up defending yourself. You do want to defend yourself. Don't try to defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you actually end up giving them that power. When you do that, you're basically saying there's an issue. So don't do that. Pick your battles. You don't have to engage in every single one that they throw out there for you, right? Sometimes there are battles that you want to engage in, sometimes there are not. And that actually brings me to number 3 as far as a way to handle a toxic person. And that is, don't take the bait. You don't have to take every single piece of bait that they throw out there either, because they will try to engage and get you to take bait. And part of the reason they do that, not just for narcissistic supply, which they do that too, because narcissists enjoy the process of triggering you. They enjoy the process of getting under your skin. They enjoy the process of watching you become emotional. They enjoy the process of manipulating you. They, of course, get off on that. They get a high from that. They get narcissistic supply from that. It's a form of enjoyment for them. Regular reasonable people aren't motivated by that, but narcissists are. Toxic people are. So you don't want to engage in it for that reason, but they also use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one, while they stand over there calm and collected. And so there you are, and you go, wait a minute, you're the one who was like that. I was only reacting to you. You were the one who was like that in the first place. You were the one who started this thing. And they go, oh no, we're in this. And you're like, no, I was only being this way because you were this way. And then you're in it. Then you're there. No, you cannot take that bait. You can't go down that path. I know you want to, but you don't have to do that. Don't take that bait. And, that's how you become ready to slay. And if you are so ready to slay, I want you to put that in the comments right now. Ready to slay. Ready to slay. Put that in the comments right now, because that's how you handle toxic people. Ready to slay right now. And that's, what I talk about with slay. Strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your position, your case. Anticipate what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them. Anticipate that they're going to try to give you bait and don't take it. So that's number 3 way to handle a toxic person. Number 4, you got to have an agenda or a plan. That's one of the ways that you're going to handle a toxic person. You got to have an agenda or a plan. And one of the ways that you can do that is, when you're going to have to go and talk to them, that they're going to want to bait you. That you're going to get emotional. That it's going to be hard for you. That your heart's going to start pounding. That it's going to take your breath away. That it's triggering for you. Have an agenda or a plan when you go to speak to them, and maybe even a time limit. That way, when it goes beyond the scope of what you're going to be talking about, or it reaches that time limit, you can just say, hey, oh no, we're sticking to this topic. Or if it reaches the time limit, you can just say, hey, I've got another engagement. I got to go. We're happy to pick this up another time. All right. I'm looking forward to talking to you the next time. Fine. But you're in and out, and it allows you to start feeling like you are taking control of the situation. Okay. So that's the next one. Have an agenda or a plan. And if you are getting ready to negotiate with a toxic person, you're getting ready to negotiate with anybody, even if it's not a toxic person, make sure to grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, crushmydeal.com. Go to crushmydeal.com, get it. It's a free ebook, 15 pages. Crushmydeal.com. Go grab it right now. You must have this. I've had people win their entire deals on this thing. So grab it. It's totally free. Crushmydeal.com. Get it right now. The number 5 way to handle a toxic person is what I call fluff or favor, vomit later. You're going to fluff up their ego, like you're fluffing up a pillow. You give them a little something, something that they want so that you get a little something, something that you want in return. Fluff up their ego, give them a little something that they want so you get a little something that you want in return. And how that looks is, can you handle resolving the QuickBooks this month? You are so good at it. You're so smart. It'll be done so much more efficiently if you do it than if I do it. I am terrible at it. Don't say anything good about yourself because they don't want to hear that. So you get something done that you want done. And I say fluff or favor, vomit later, because, if you need to feel like you need to go vomit later, go do that. But then you got something done that you wanted done, and they got what they wanted, which is their ego got fluffed up. So fluff or favor, vomit later. That's number 5 way to handle a toxic person. Okay, so I help people negotiate with narcissists, and they are the most mean when they have to negotiate, because it is then that the gloves come off, because that's when everything becomes black and white. Because for a narcissist, you are either for them or against them. You're either in their camp or not. They don't see things in gray. You are either part of their world, part of their army, or not. And they are so easily slighted. And when they even hint that there's something in the air, that there's some kind of thing that you might be against them, boy, do they get mean. And so what is that number 1 emotion that's happening behind that? Why do they get so mean? Especially when you think, wow, I've done so much for you. And I'm telling you, this is in a business setting. This is in a personal setting. This is in a family setting, no matter what it is. And you're over there thinking, how do you not see all the things that I've done for you, the relationship that we've had, and you don't want to have closure. You don't want to maybe have some kind of relationship after this. Why do you want to burn this thing to the ground? Why are you so mean? And by the way, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm an attorney. I'm a narcissist negotiation expert. I recommend that you go ahead and subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. I upload brand new videos every single day. I've helped millions and millions of people through this channel and through my books, through my podcast, through my law practice. And I want to help you too. What is that number 1 emotion that is behind the narcissist's mean streak? Narcissists are driven by a need for attention. They're driven by a need for validation. They are super insecure. They're threatened by people who they perceive to be better than them. This insecurity leads them to put people down. It leads them to do all sorts of things. But what's behind that? What's behind this deep need, right? What's behind that? What's inside? They seek power and they seek control, and people just see all of that. And a lot of people think, wow, they're so confident and they get so far in life. And many people only see that side of them. And they think, wow, this person makes me feel so bad. They make me feel so small. Yeah, they are fueled by this sense of entitlement, and they want to feel special, and they think that they should get this special treatment. And yes, they are extremely manipulative, and they think that they should get what they want all the time. Why do they do these things? What's behind that? And why are they constantly moving the goalposts? And I'm telling you that in negotiations, if you think that all they want to do is win, you are dead wrong, because that is not all that they want. They don't want to just win. If they just wanted to win, then why is it that when people say, just let me give them everything they want, I'll be out of it? Why are you not out of it? Why is it that they keep moving goalposts? It's because of this thing, right? They also enjoy the process of making you squirm. They also enjoy the process of manipulating you. They get narcissistic supply from that. They enjoy getting supply from that. That feeds them. Everything is driven by supply. Everything is driven by that almighty supply. It's their food, it's their lifeblood, it's their oxygen. They need to feel like they're alive. And that's what drives them. That's what makes them feel alive, right? And so they lie, they cheat, they do all these things to get ahead. And because they don't have any sense of empathy or compassion for others, they don't feel anything when they trample on people, when they step on people. They don't see that wake behind them. They don't see the bloodbath that they're leaving behind them. And they are charismatic and charming, and they can get what they want. And that also makes them very dangerous. So you do need to know signs of narcissism so that you can protect yourself from being taken advantage of. The number one emotion behind all of this is not necessarily what you think. Yes, it's driven by this need for narcissistic supply. Yes, it's driven by this need to feed that beast inside of them that has to feel like they matter deeply, and that's why they can't feel anything about you. It's that black hole inside of them that can never be filled, and you might want to fill it too, but it can never be filled, and that's why you're left totally and completely and utterly depleted. It's a one-way street that it never goes the other direction. But really what it's being driven by is fear. That's the emotion. That's the emotion behind it. It's fear, fear of loss, fear of not being significant, fear of being no one, fear of losing everything, all of it. Fear of not having power, fear of not having attention, fear of not being validated, fear of being exposed. All of it is driven by fear. They're extremely, extremely scared people inside. They've got these two sides to them at all times. There's this inside person and this outside person. And that's what you need to understand. There's two sides to each person, each narcissist. And what happens when you whip off that mask? That's the next video that you need to watch of mine. When you whip off, especially the covert narcissist masks, what happens to them? I mean, they don't know what to do when you expose them. That's the number one emotion that's really behind what's going on a narcissist mean streak, especially when they feel threatened. And when you're dealing with them in a negotiation, they are at their absolute worst. But you can't give up and you can't give in because they're at their worst right before they're ready to give up. And I know it seems hard to believe, but it is the absolute truth. So never give in. And that's what I want you to put in the comments right now. Never give in, because that's when you're about to win. Never give in, never give up. Put never give in the comments right now. Never give in. There's an old story about how this gold miner was just about ready to hit gold, and then he gave up, and then they found out that he gave up and he was 3 feet from gold, 3 feet from hitting the mother lode of gold. So you don't want to be 3 feet from gold. You don't want to give up. Don't give up. Never give in, because they are afraid. They're way more afraid of you than you are of them. And that's what they don't want you to figure out. I do want to take the time for the people who listen to me, for the people who follow me, who are out there going, well, this sounds great, but what does this have to do with me? Who, if I'm here, I'm trying to negotiate with a toxic personality. Maybe I have a difficult business partner, or I have a difficult, I'm going through a difficult divorce or whatever it is. And, I'm sure in your travails as you've gone along and you've had to negotiate your way through uh, many different situations, that you've come across a difficult personality or two along the way. Before we jumped on the air today, I said, the reason why you have been so phenomenally successful is that you really understand people. I mean, that's your business. You understand people. That's why marketing is the deep understanding of people. So for those people who are, maybe negotiating with somebody who's really toxic, tell a story, or, where would you start when you were dealing with a difficult or toxic personality?
Well, if you will allow me to answer a different question first. It's
Please.
it's okay, what is the basis of what you very, very accurately depicted my understanding of humanity? And I would say it was a number of things. First, in the course of my body of work and my uh, consulting work, I've not had to, I've chosen to help about 300 prominent experts, the Stephen Coveys of the world, the Stephen M.R. Coveys of the world, the Brian Tracy's, Tony Robbins, all kinds of people who were specialists at the highest pinnacle of what they were experts at. And none of them came to me for help with their expertise. They came for help to command greater respect, greater value, greater price, greater concreteness to the intangibles of the skill sets they had mastered. But I had to learn all of a short course from each one of them on what the heck it was all about. So I got this massive understanding, and it made an impact. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've had some wonderful life experiences. One of them was a very famous Hall of Fame athlete, entrepreneur who had a setback, and I met him right afterwards. And he went from being an arrogant, self-consumed dick to being a really compassionate and contributing human being. And he had a philosophy that I loved. He said, anytime any two people come together for any reason, your responsibility is to make the other person better off, even if you're in their life for a few minutes, and even if they don't seem they want it, whether you smile, whether you listen, whether you just, you're there. And that started. Then I did a lot of stuff with Stephen R. Covey, the one who had the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he had a belief system that I'll paraphrase, it doesn't do it justice. But your goal in life, your purpose in life, your responsibility in life is to first try to examine, evaluate, understand, appreciate, respect, and acknowledge how the other side sees life. Doesn't mean you agree, but that's their reality. So you can't really move to consensus, collaboration, victory if if you're having two realities going on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I learned, and Stephen Covey said also, seek to hear before being heard. And I think that's a big advantage. The next is that I had a bunch of clients that were fascinating. One of them, you're an attorney. One of them was a famous criminal attorney. I said, how in the world can you possibly represent rapists and murderers and all these horrific and heinous criminals? And he goes, I can only do it if I can first find at least one thing that I can admire about them. Maybe they were a great son. Maybe they were great at church. Maybe even though they went on the dark side, they were a Boy Scout. And I'm just putting all these threads together. So that's the next thing. The next is I love human beings, and I believe that every human being, it's no BS, it's not vainglorious or me trying to seem like I'm better than anyone. I believe every human being, with little exception, deserves to be treated with relevancy, dignity, significance, irrespective of their circumstance or stature. So I come into everything feeling that everybody is interesting, everybody is valuable, everyone has hopes, dreams. On a micro or a macro, everyone's got the same thing. I used to travel all the time to China and Vietnam, and I'd go to Malaysia and Bali, and I'd go all over the world, and everybody wants the same thing. They want better lives first for their children, then for themselves. They want more happiness, and then they want things. But I think that also, you'll never, this is, and I don't know if I can, these are all things I've learned from others, not original to me. I'm a synthesis of far brighter people above my intellectual compassion, insight, humanitarian, and not that it's that noble. I mean, you can't command success, leadership, and be ethically victorious if you don't understand the human condition and respect it for what it is and not try to fight it for what it isn't, if that makes sense. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, I mean, I think also, at their core, they want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. I mean, I think all human beings want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. I mean, that's why I called my book Negotiate Like You Matter, because I
I
feel
like
like so I mean, you do talk about that too, that you know really at the core, people, you're the greatest skill that people can possess is listening,
yeah.
and you talk about
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, and listening is one of the most little possessed skills. And if you get to that point, listening, most people don't have the capacity to demonstrate that they heard what was said, because we're all so eager, we're all queuing up, waiting for an interruption in the discussion to, to command control of the discussion, instead of letting it be this wonderful interaction between two people to get to an outcome. And it's always, any discussion is really, it's a collaboration. Whether you're fighting somebody or whether you're love each other, you're collaborating to get to some outcome, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, but one of the things that I talk about in negotiating is the concept of what I call narcissistic bartering. And people, they don't love to hear it, but I say that one of the strategies is basically what I call narcissistic fluffing, which is fluffing up.
I love the analogy. What is it?
It's fluffing up the narcissist ego to get giving something which is what they want, which is to fluff up their ego
Yeah.
in order to get something that you want. And, because they want and crave adulation.
Yes.
So it's to say, hey, you know, you are really great at QuickBooks or something, like that. You're so much better at it than I am. So, how about you do this? Something like that. So it's to get them to do something that you want them to do. And therefore you end up getting something out of the deal. And then, so
And I think honestly, you can find something to acknowledge them on, and it doesn't have to be inauthentic. But I think a lot of people need to, I mean, they need to win, and winning is usually losing in that kind of a scenario. I'm going to one up them. I'm going to show them. I'm going to respond in a reactive, in a vitriolic manner. And that doesn't work with that kind of a situation. It actually is, it just intensifies and fuels the negativity, and the flames just erupt.
right. So, I mean, I think if you're dealing with a personality type where that they want to have their ego stroked more, stroke the ego, right? I mean, then you get something out of it that you want. So what?
And I think that, yeah, I don't think that that is incorrect. And that's not to say that I think it isn't. I think that basically, if you think about life's interaction, negotiation, which, I mean, the truth of the matter is all of life is a negotiation, isn't it really?
Absolutely. I
I mean,
mean, I say that sometimes the first negotiation you do is with your own mind for your own self-worth sometimes when you're getting out of the bed.
every
I
day.
mean,
And that's very, no, it's very insightful. You're negotiating every minute, either explicit, implicit, external, or internal. You're exactly right. And sometimes you're negotiating with your own narcissist and you don't know it if you think about it.
yeah, I mean, but one of the things that I heard you say that I thought was really, really insightful was you talk about this concept of if you want to to be interesting, you have to be interested.
You want me to expand?
Yes, I do.
So if I tell the foundation of that realization, it'll probably make for a better story. It'll be rather than just an answer that has no context to it. So when I was younger, I used to travel all around the world all the time and do very, very significant seminars. There was a time, without being arrogant, that I was the highest paid and the most successful entrepreneurial business seminar uh, leader, head, whatever you want to call it, in the world. And we were traveling all over and doing sold out. I used to go to Sydney, Australia, and Melbourne, Australia, and China. We'd go 3 or 4 places. And I was in Sydney one time. We're doing this was $5 or $10 million of seminars in a 3-day period, which was a lot. This was many years ago. And I'd flown in with my family, who I always took with me. And it was a very long flight because we had to change planes in Hawaii. And it was really interesting. We get into our hotel. It was in the middle of Sydney. Everyone went to bed but me. I couldn't sleep. I went to the concierge room at the top of a 40, 50-story building, beautiful view of Sydney Harbor. And I'm walking in, there's one man there, the only person there, and he's having a drink. And I have a tendency to want to interact with people. I find that just really therapeutically and fascinating, and I grow from it. And it's an interaction, sort of it's mental, it's sort of an exercise. So I go up to the man and I told him 2 things about myself. But before I told him this, just so you know it, I was conducting 4 different seminars all over Australia. One was 25,000, 3 were 5, and this is when the normal seminar was $500, and they were all sold out. So I'm saying it just to put a context. I had people that couldn't get in, so I was very, very popular, and I was there to do that. But I told the man only 2 things: I was from the United States, and I was there on business. That's all I told him. The rest of the hour and a half we spoke, I just asked him questions. And I very naturally learned how to do Socratic interviewing, asking him questions and building on them, because I was genuinely trying to understand him and trying to project what he was saying. So I asked him, first of all, what he did. Turns out he was from Germany. He worked for the largest pharmaceutical company. He traveled around the world calling on third world health ministers, selling population control systems. I found that to be really amazing. So I asked him how you get an appointment with a third world health minister, what you're selling, what a population control system entailed, what the population thought about being controlled. I asked him very frankly, are you selling it above board under the table? And he answered me. I then asked him what he was doing in Sydney. It turned out, which I didn't pay attention, there were all these guards there. At the same hotel was the World Conference for Health Ministers, not just third world. And he was an iconic soul that knew everybody. He had his Rolodex, had more key health ministers from every country, and he was a key speaker. That was fascinating. Then I switched and I wanted to know what life was like in Germany, lifestyle, cost of living, housing, education, retirement, religion, even topography, because I'd never really paid attention. And I asked him also about, sorry for the noise, my family just came home and I'm down in the wine room. Then I asked him about what he was going to do when he retired and grew up. He's got this great Rolodex, and he answered me. It was fascinating. And I, at that time, used to love drinking Courvoisiers, and I was drinking them obsessively and talking because I found him really, his answers stimulated me. And I was starting to get very tipsy, so I didn't want to pass out. So I stood up and I excused myself and I started walking towards the elevator. And he stopped me and he said, I've got to tell you, you are absolutely one of the most interesting people I have ever met, swear to God. And I told him nothing about myself. I mean, get pieces of minutia that they no relevancy whatsoever. But I made intentionally, but also sincerely, him all important. And I remember, and this is going to sound a little funny, leaning against the outer sort of frame of the elevator, praying that when it opened, there was a floor there and I wasn't going to fall out because I was starting to wobble, thinking, wow, I just learned if you want to be interesting, all you have to do is be interested. Then I evolved it and thought, well, that means if you want to be trusted, maybe all you have to do is trust. Maybe if you want to be loved, all you have to do is love. Then everything is probably the mirror image. And that was the foundation of that. And it is expanded dramatically. And I'm just naturally curious, but it is the font of enormous significance in the eyes of other people. And the more you understand how to connect dots when you talk to people, and the more you understand how to project yourself into the life they are describing or the events they are describing, and you try to really envision them, the more connected you are and the more enjoyable the dialogue as well. But there's a protracted answer.